Hey, welcome to a behind the scenes look at Yoshi Eats Super Mushrooms. This animation was brought about because I did another Yoshi animation a couple years ago, and the YouTube gods decided to raise that to the high heavens, and a while ago I did tease making a sequel for that, and I sat on that for a long time. I didn't really have a good idea for it. At the time of making that video, I had messaged Kumu, or however they pronounce it. They make super cool remixes of video game music, and originally I wanted them to do the music for that first video. They took a few days to get back to me, and in that time I kind of made my own rendition, which worked out pretty well. But they did get back to me and they said, you know, as long as you give credit, it's fine. Their website also does reflect that. So I was like, I'm definitely going to take them up on that in the future. And here we are in the future. So I used their version of Flower Garden for this video, and I thought, well, if Yoshi eats super mushrooms, that could be cool. He could grow. When I make an animation like this, and the last Yoshi video was like this too, I like to have a central theme to work around. Last time was Yoshi eating characters and turning them into other characters. This time it's Yoshi growing to obnoxious sizes. If you haven't seen the video yet, the original animation, I'll leave a link in the description for that. Probably watch that before this one. So without further ado, let's dig into this. This first scene is actually interesting to talk about because a couple things happen. So I didn't have sound effects in this video until the very, very end. It was just the music. And what kind of persuaded me is this first scene, like I would watch this a million times over and over again. And this first scene, when Yoshi's tongue hits this mushroom, I always expected like a sound effect to happen. And like, obviously I knew it wasn't going to happen, but that kind of told me like, if I was expecting that every time, I should probably put sound effects in. So I think it definitely benefits from that. So then he eats the mushroom and we have kind of the first, I guess you could call it an allusion to drugs, but I was very careful with that because really this video was not about that. I think the whole Mario mushroom drug joke is a little bit overdone. And really all of my punchlines in this video was about Yoshi getting bigger. Not really the drug thing. So it was kind of a subtle reference. This and the scene later on in the video, which I'll talk about when we get to it. And actually in this scene, I had his eyes pink as if he was stoned. And he's like looking around like he's just out of his mind. And I just thought that was a little too distracting. I didn't want to mislead the audience in thinking like this is about drugs or drug use and, you know, whatever. It's really about super mushrooms making Yoshi grow bigger. And I'll be looking at my sketch layers too. I don't sketch a lot. In my animations, I'm starting to more and more in like storyboard. Like when I started this project, I really didn't know what direction it was going to go, or really, like I really didn't have the whole thing fleshed out at all. Like a lot of it was just by the seat of my pants. But for some animations like this, like I had him growing, and then I just had these circles and I just kind of tweened them to get the movement and then drew kind of over those circles. So you can kind of see like look left, look right. And so I kind of get the movements that I want out of the shapes and then draw on top of that. There's another sketch of Yoshi eating this mushroom and getting bigger. There's not a whole lot to talk about in these scenes. This is one of my earlier like jokes for this video. Imagining Mario, then Nessie, then Yoshi, that kind of like playing with the expectations. And I really didn't sketch these scenes out. There was like, they were simple enough and there wasn't that much to animate. You see that I do put like, I have this plugin for Flash that lets me like make notes on the timeline. So like I like, okay, Mario here, Nessie here, Yoshi here. So I can kind of like map that out. And that is kind of like, if you watch the playhead, it starts on Mario, then we zoom out to Nessie here, and then Yoshi here. So sometimes I'll just map it out that way. And then this scene's a lot of fun actually. I really like the idea of the cup holder and Bowser being in disbelief here. I'm also a huge baseball fan, so I tried to make the field pretty accurate. Love Mario Superstar Sluggers for the GameCube too. Great game. So I have Waluigi pitching. They have the shift on against Luigi, and Bowser's too distracted by Yoshi desecrating his little hover car. Koopa Kart, right? Is that what it's called? I don't remember. And this is kind of a weird scene. It's a scene that I think I have sketched actually. Yeah, here's the sketch for it. So and he plummets and Yoshi grabs him, all happy. Sometimes it's just like this simple. And then for other movements, like if it's a more complicated like thing that I'm gonna have to draw a lot of different frames for, I'll actually sketch it out a lot more in detail to make sure I get those movements down. This scene I felt I could have probably framed a little better. It's a little bit awkward to have this building and Donkey Kong falling. It's really set up to be more of a vertical scene than a horizontal scene, but I think it works out okay. And then here's the Godzilla sketch getting bigger and stronger. And I think that follows pretty closely with what I wound up with. Yeah, I mean, like almost exactly. But originally the final stage of this Godzilla was going to be the pose before that. And I had like an extra one in here too. But a lot of times in like cartoons like this, I think it's a lot more effective to over exaggerate if you can. So I saw this and I'm like, you know what? I have some room around him. I can make him even bigger. So that's what I opted to do. And then we have the sketch of Yoshi looking freaked out. Pretty close to the end result. Actually, originally I was going to have his arms, instead of shrinking like this, they were going to kind of like droop down, like low. I think Bugs Bunny did that once, if anyone remembers that. But I thought the thinning of the arms was not only like easier to do, but also came across a little more clearly. And then this scene, oh my God. So this was kind of a pain, but I'm really happy with how it came out, actually. I'm really like the scene a lot. Here's a sketch for it. And it's mostly frame by frame. And then again with the shapes, as I said earlier, I kind of tweened the shapes first. I put a sketch on top of it just to like know where they were going to move. When you do a scene like this with a lot of different frames, and I'll bring back the actual drawing, I kind of have it in stages. I don't know if you can tell, but like these movements here, like this is almost all the same like pose, and then he like gets way down. So you kind of like, I don't know how to describe it really, but it's like kind of putting the movements in stages where it's like a bunch of subtle movements and then a much more drastic movement. Like here we have a lot of subtle movements kind of slowly just going down, and then all of a sudden he goes down like a lot, and then more very subtle movements, and again he comes up pretty quickly. And especially in this mouth open scene, it's going to kind of come in like 2 stages, I think. So we have this first stage, very subtle like turning, and then this is like a much more extreme turn. And then to make the chomp that happens a little bit more impactful, I have him also widening his mouth a bit before actually chomping down. So that makes this chomp coming up even more exaggerated. I really love smear frames. This is only, this is 24 frames a second animation, so this is 1/24 of a second, but it makes this chomp that much more extreme. It just feels that much more snappy. And then literally to the final pose. And he kind of has like a little bounce afterwards. I'm really happy with how this turned out. And then we have this fire, which I'm pretty happy with how the fire came out. So yeah, the fire is only 5 frames, and it's really a matter of, if I zoom in a little more here for you, it's really a matter of like, you don't want it to look too like spazzy. That can be kind of difficult. So I kind of alternate. So here it's on the left side, next frame it's on the right side. Now it's kind of in the middle. We go kind of taller than the rest of them and a little bit more on the left again. And this 5th frame is important. This is where it shrinks down. So this one's a bit lower than all the rest, but it kind of gives it a bounce and kind of provides contrast for the rest of the animation. So you can see they're all up here, around here, this level. This one reaches a little higher, and this one's way lower. And actually the background for that very same scene has a similar thing going on. We have this lightning that I did in the background here, kind of a very anime looking action scene. So we have all these lightning strikes, and they all have like a frame of contrast. So like you see this one on the bottom is pretty like jagged, and then it flattens out. It has its contrast frame there. So that gives it a little bit bounce. Now this one on the top is doing it, and then the one in the background in the middle also has its kind of more flattened out frame. And then they kind of like jag it around, flatten out again. So they're all offset a little bit so that they don't all happen at the same time, but I think it really makes the whole thing look pretty nice. And this may be my favorite part of the animation, just how the music is so intense and it drops down to this very like almost serene like point. And you think this big battle's about to happen, and then you see them like laying in the grass watching clouds. I love that contrast. I love how it just changes unexpectedly like that. So here's a sketch for Yoshi pulling the cloud out of the sky. That was also a hard scene to kind of frame. And I'm not sure if I did the best I could have with this, but it got the idea across, so I guess it works. And then this scene, this is like the, to me, this is like the true climax in the video, like this crazy scene of Yoshi just like going out of his mind because he ate this cloud. And now here in Flash, it's not quite as crazy. A lot of the effects in the background are done in After Effects, which I don't think I'm going to go over. It's kind of like simple stuff. If people want to see that, I can definitely do a video on that as well. But yeah, in Flash, it just kind of, it looks pretty normal, relatively speaking. I am pretty happy with this Yoshi animation though, which I think kind of gets overshadowed with so much going on in that scene, but especially like how his hands move, come up and wiggle his fingers like that. Like, I'm really happy with how that turned out. And then this scene, was actually another one of my favorite scenes. I didn't really know what I was going to do here. I felt like I already had the kind of the climax of the video, and I still had a lot of song left, and I didn't really know how to fill that time. I thought this might be a little bit too abruptly put in here, but I think it works pretty well. I love his face, the facial reactions I was able to give him. He has all these super mushrooms back here. Originally they were colored more normally, like the brown in the mushrooms and the brown in the crates, but I knocked them back a little bit, tried to make them blend in a little more just because I thought they were a little too distracting. Originally, I also had a Princess Peach like hula doll, kind of, if I can find it. I'm having trouble finding the Peach symbol, but here is the original title screen I had. But I thought it was just a little bit too, I don't know, I didn't really love how it looked. Here's Princess Peach. See, it was just this was on his counter, and she just swayed back and forth like that. Pretty simple. Just bobbing back and forth. But originally I thought that was like way too distracting. Whoops, let's not do that. Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty short scene, and there's already a lot to take in. It's important to notice the super mushrooms behind him, because that's why this scene makes sense. But also you have these extreme reactions coming from the Koopa character. So the Peach was just a little bit too much. But I do like references, so I did put a nice Wiimote and nunchuck in his hands to pilot the plane. And another very like, not subtle, but simple reference, the P-Wing on the plane. I had a couple other things here too, but they were just a little bit too distracting, I think. But again, when you talk about animating kind of in phases, this movement, Yoshi has basically 3 phases to this animation, where he's here, and he zooms in, and then he turns. There's a second phase, and more subtle movements, and then another extreme movement to open his mouth. Right here. It just makes it a little more interesting. Like if Yoshi grew and turned his head at a smooth, constant rate, it wouldn't be nearly as impactful, I don't think. And then these scenes I just left blank. Just a little placeholder because I knew I was going to render these out in Blender. You can probably tell, but I'm not very good at Blender. but I do love it, and I really want to use it more in my videos. I think it's really cool, really exciting, and I'm going to keep at it and learn more about it. And again, I don't think they're really worth like showing off in this video. If you guys want to see that, we can. But there's really not much behind the scenes, you know, behind what you see in the actual animation. Then this scene with them all panning out, which isn't much to it. I guess it is kind of interesting to see like how things kind of pop in and like how unfinished the drawings are. So you have Godzilla, then Nessie, and like the background kind of comes in, and then Toad eventually. So that's kind of what's going on out of bounds there. And again, another scene in Blender, which originally this was going to be like mountains with like Yoshi in the background. And I did render that out, but it really didn't make sense for him to be a little bit bigger than mountains here, and then suddenly like as big as the world here. So I wound up just making this his shoe, as if like, yeah, he's really, really getting big. And again in Blender, I'll just let this play out, I guess. There's really not much left in this video. We do have... So originally here I was going to have like this Mario Head planet go by, the Great Fox go by, and then eventually we have the Mushroom come into play and Yoshi come into play, which is actually all a lot different than it wound up being. And just like the way I was doing it in Blender just wound up being easier the way it came out. And then yeah, there's not much left really. I didn't sketch this part out at all when he eats the mushroom and the Yoshi Galaxy. So yeah, that's about it. I'm really happy with how it came out actually. I think it's some of my best animation. I'd love to do more stuff like this, more especially with music. I love animating to music. I think it's very, they go together really well. And really I think I just animate better to music. Maybe it's just because I have a tempo to kind of time things to, but I don't know. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please like and subscribe. I know I haven't been the most consistent on this channel, but I plan to change that. My life has just been crazy the past couple years, so I do plan to animate a lot more, do more videos like this, more behind the scenes, maybe on older videos if you guys want. I also plan to stream my future animations on Twitch at the same name, WordWizard64. My next project is quite ambitious. It's going to be this video, frame by frame, and I plan to stream every minute of it. I don't have a set schedule yet, but probably most Saturdays, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, you'll find me on there. And yeah, I do plan to do more videos like this too, just to kind of help with the content. Animations only come out every so often. They just require a lot of time. So I'll be doing more videos like this discussing the process, behind the scenes, analysis, and whatever else. If you guys have ideas, let me know. Anyway, this has dragged on long enough. I hope you like this, and I hope to see you again real soon.